All right. Okay, we're back again. We kept talking, and Jim started talking about something that I think has to go on the record. So, day 5, part B.
Yeah, and I was talking about just a really profound experience that I had. Was that yesterday? No, that was day before
Day
yesterday.
before.
On our long drive, um, Katty was sharing something with me that Lester talked about, and that is the world is perfect. And that's such a foreign concept with me or to me. But it was just last week that another friend had said, what if, Jim, what if nothing needs fixing? What if the world is perfect the way it is? And again, that's not the first time I'd heard that, but I had wrapped my emotions around the axle and I was spinning out and really struggling with this concept that I needed fixing. And so it was in that context that this friend said, what if you don't? What if everything is perfect? What if you're perfect the way you are? And um, and so I wanted to talk with you, the three of you about, or the two of you, the three of us, about that notion, that concept that nothing needs to be fixed. And the context that and I came to, or the conclusion that we came to, was that um, everyone is a perfect eternal being. Is that what Lester talks about?
Infinite being.
Infinite being. Thank you. And and there's so many people that I would rush to judgment about. I mean, just talk about political leadership these days. A rush to judgment about, man, if there's anybody that needs fixing, it's that guy, right? And um, and the notion that what if what if he's perfect in the context of the world being perfect? If I say to myself that the story that I tell is that that guy absolutely needs fixing, that flies in the face of this bigger meta picture that the world is perfect, and he doesn't. Well, in that case, also with an awareness that everyone is doing the very best that they know how to do given their own programming, I can actually have compassion for that guy
Mhm.
because we got there because we were talking about a homeless guy or an addict or someone who is uh, mentally disabled. Man, if the world is perfect, then they are exactly who they need to be. And I am so grateful that they are taking on that role so that I don't have to. In this notion of perfection, the greater perfection, someone has to take that role. I'm so grateful to them that they have chosen to take that role in today's global um, experience of perfection. And um, and that absolutely changes my perspective about everybody. I can now look at them with love and say, "Oh my gosh, it must be so painful for you to live in your experience. And if that experience is necessary in this global meta macro perfect world, I'm grateful to you that you have chosen that difficult experience so that I didn't have to."
Okay.
That was mind-boggling. It helped me. It didn't help me. It absolutely changed the way I view everyone who I normally would have judged harshly prior to that perspective shift. That's what I wanted to share. Anything to add to that?
Um, well, so I suppose what I would say is so the idea that the world is perfect comes from Lester, right? So he was talking about that. We were listening to some of his recordings, and he was talking about that. And similar to Jim, I would struggle with like how are things right now? How could they possibly be perfect? But I backed up and said, well, if I accept that premise that everything has to be the way it is, then there was a highway worker outside. It was like 95 degrees and they were working on the road. And
With hot tar.
with hot tar. And my initial response was like, oh God, I'd hate to have that job. And then I thought, oh my God, but if somebody does have to do that job, like it was easy to get there, someone has to do that job. And it shifted. I'm so glad that these guys are doing that job so that I can have this road to drive on. And that was my first toehold into, well, if it's all perfect, I'm so glad I don't have to be, this comes back to something that Byron said, I don't have to be the drunk in the gutter, or Karen said that. I don't have to be the drunk in the gutter that's living that experience, or I don't have to be the crooked politician that's just trying to get their bag lined. Yeah, and who cares about anybody else? Because that can't be a very rich experience, right? It can't be, they're certainly not living from love if they're operating that way. And so it just, for me, it kept kind of expanding into an awareness of that shift in perspective, that it all should be the way that it is. If you stop resisting, which is so much what Lester is saying, if you can let go of the world and love the world exactly as it is, what you find is love within yourself. And that was where Jim, like he's like, oh my God, it totally shifts how I see things.
And when I held that judgmental view, that judgmental place, there was no room for an alternate perspective. That's the truth. And cognitive bias always sent me down my wheel in that rut toward judgment and contempt. And this shift has made an immense difference and taken that wheel out of the rut. In a sort of a blinding flash of wisdom. And I'm so grateful for it.
So I'm curious how
I
that
think that-
lands for you, Greg.
Well, I think it's valuable to get rid of judgment. It's like instead of seeing the world as good and evil, seeing the world as perfect in a way sounds like that's better than judging that somehow one is right, one is wrong, one is good, one is evil. The one concern I have is that if you feel like the world is perfect, it might take away from the thought that I should still do something to make it better. So maybe if the world is perfect as a learning opportunity for us to learn and grow spiritually. So if you see the guy out there working in 95-degree heat, pouring black tar, you can do one of two things. You can say, oh, the world is perfect. That's his job. I'm glad he's doing it. Or you can bring him a cold bottle of water and try to make his life better. And if
It's not either or, you could do both.
Yeah. Yeah. But you don't want to just feel like, oh, the world is perfect. I don't need to grow. I don't need to do anything different. The world is what it is. It kind of reminds me of what I hear is the caste system in India. If you were born into poverty, that's because you deserved it. And that's where you should be the rest of your life, because that's just the perfect way of the world. And that's what God intended. I don't want the world to be so perfect that we think we can't make a difference for the better, or we can't learn and grow from it. But to not see it as wrong or evil and see it with a perspective of love. And are they here to teach me something? Are they here to provide an opportunity for me to show love to a fellow human being? Then that's valuable, as opposed to, oh, they're wrong, they're evil. The hardest thing, though, and I hear this a lot when people talk about the world being the way it's supposed to be, is so what? Hitler and the Holocaust and World War II, that was all, whether it's part of God's plan or a perfect world or all of that, it's like, it's kind of hard to say Hitler was perfect.
Sure.
Yeah. Well,
So
but then who's to say, right? I mean, so it's this awful experience. And I guess if I try to step into Lester's shoes, um, it, what I think he might say, pardon me, Lester, if I get it completely wrong, is that fundamentally this is all a dream, right? And this is
Mhm.
consciousness meeting itself. And that so that awfulness that went on, um, somehow was teaching us something, was giving us an opportunity, right? It was such an unloving time. And it's a way in which humans were getting in the way of love, right? And so, but that birthed someone like Viktor Frankl, right? Who wrote about it and said, yeah, in the midst of being in a concentration camp, I realized that they couldn't steal my inner life. So he actually, in some ways, proves, um, to some extent at least, what Lester was saying, which is your internal view of that experience. He would, Victor would imagine himself lecturing to students and about what happened here and about the meaning that he was making in that environment. That maybe all of that. I remember this was during 9/11. A colleague of mine, I was in India at the time, and I'm like, how can you, he was Mormon and I was spiritual, but not religious. And I'm like, how do you look at that and say there's a God, right? I don't understand how a God allows that. And his response, which stuck with me, obviously, I don't know how many years later now, um, 24 years later, he's like, well, you don't know. I mean, sure, that event is horrific, but you don't know all the good things that might actually come from what looks horrific. And the good might actually outweigh the devastation of that. So, um, but Greg, you're putting your finger on, my mom was born during is German, born during the war, and that's kind of something that she's held. And I feel like it's almost intergenerational trauma, whether passed genetically or passed through stories. That's always the thing that comes to my mind, is how can this be a safe world? How can this be a good world when something like that, something like the Holocaust could happen?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
But I kind of agree with the idea that the world is not fundamentally broken so much as we're just supposed to learn something from these experiences, and bad things happen for a reason. It reminds me of the once I heard somebody about why do bad things happen to good people? And they use the analogy of a butterfly. And when a cocoon is formed, that life is completely transformed. And as it's coming out of the cocoon, it's hard. They struggle. And a person once tried to help them and took a small X-Acto knife and slowly opened up the slit a little bit, and it got out of the cocoon more easily. And he thought he was helping the butterfly. But
mhm.
the butterfly needs to squeeze through all that effort out through the cocoon in order to put the blood into its wings. And without the traumatic and hard experiences in life, we can't fly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
sometimes
they
those,
die, right? The butterflies die.
yeah, it's completely gone, or the caterpillar's completely gone, and something new is born. So these bad experiences can sometimes be what's needed to go to the next level and to, as
Yeah,
an individual, maybe fly.
yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
Well, and I got to Leicester through a difficult experience of um, getting an MRI, and they found on my neck, and they found a thyroid, they found a nodule on my thyroid, and that led to an ultrasound, which led to a biopsy, which led to this is not normal. And that freaked me out. And like, oh my God, after everything I've been through, like another thing. Um, and that I was getting all wound up. And I could see it, but I couldn't release it. And that's how I found a recording that Tara Brock did on letting go. And she mentioned the Sedona method, which got me which got me to Lester Levinson. And I think she talked about Lester, his awakening came around having, I think, two heart attacks And the doctor's basically saying, like, you are a ticking time bomb. Don't exert, don't do anything. You're going to die in the next 3 months. And that's really what caused him to wake up. He's like, because he had all other health conditions, and he's like, I'm either going to figure this shit out and find my way through, or I'm going to take myself out, because he had enough morphine from another condition. He's like, I'm not letting a heart attack take me. I'm going to kill myself. And so, and
Wow.
he was not happy. He was not a happy guy, and he ended up basically isolating for 3 months and figuring his shit out. And he lived another, I don't know,
43 years.
43 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So a couple good
that bad
examples of
thing brought
bad
him
things.
to the good thing. And he
Yeah,
wouldn't
whether
have
it's
gotten there. Yeah.
just like Viktor Frankl being in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Something good came out of it that is impacting generations to come.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And so
so
who knows? Because I feel like it was destined that I was going to find Lester, but I wouldn't have found Lester any
without,
other way. Like, so many things come across my feed. So the idea that I went to that specific letting go that led me to me being me, led me to these other things. Um, and yeah, so I really feel like that whole thing was Lester like wanting to get my attention. Um,
Reminds me of something you say about your major cancer condition that we just lived through. You have said, I've cured an incurable cancer, but really cancer cured me.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I mean that the multiple myeloma was what woke me up to, oh shit, like I got to start doing something different. And that's what got me meditating and really looking at my spiritual life. And I'd kind of gotten a little complacent, and I felt like there was something missing. Like there was something that I hadn't quite put my finger on yet. And it's like I needed this little scare to wake me up again. And I feel like I'm definitely on the right path.
well, we've been talking about some of the bad experiences and sparking things, and you just use the word complacency. And somewhere about a month ago, I saw something that said, we were not meant for a life of comfort. And
Hmm.
yet we always want to seek comfort. And I know if I think back 2 years ago, that's what I was doing. I was trying to build this comfortable life that I thought would just make life comfortable until I died. And yet we weren't built for comfort. So these hardships, these setbacks, these traumatic experiences are really there for us to either grow or sometimes push us out of our comfort zone so we can go do something to help others.
Hmm.
So that's maybe why there's these bad things that happen in the world. They're to keep us from just, if everything worked perfectly and life was just easy, we'd all be comfortable, but that's not really why we're here. We're here to grow and learn and help others.
And therein lies the perfection
Yeah.
of, because
Yeah,
we don't get to choose our trials, but we do get to choose our response
I love
and,
that.
and the learning from them. Uh, so I love that too.
Yeah. Good. I think I
Good
think
insights. Thank you for that contribution, Jim.
I
Yeah.
think we got that
Oh,
nailed.
and I have to apologize because earlier I said bad behavior. That is not actually how I now view it. It is your triggering behavior, and it's a trigger for Caddy. But that doesn't mean it's a bad behavior. It's simply a behavior that you do that triggers her. And hopefully there's a little less shame there because it's not that bad a thing.
Well, again, the shame is on me. The shame not on me. The shame is because of my own programming, right? So you didn't
Yeah.
trigger anything. You just made a comment. I'm the one who took it and spun it up.
Right.
Um,
You,
and
you pointed to a release opportunity.
absolutely. Um, so yeah. And uh, you'll be happy to know, as my friend, that that has been on my radar, and I am very consciously working on mitigating the phone use and the interruptions, and even yesterday before I took that call, I showed Caddy who was calling. That was a a business call where I wouldn't have done that before. I'd just, knee jerk, grab the phone and walk out of the room without an explanation. And so there are some positive changes that are helping, that I'm making, that are helping Katty in terms of her own triggering response to my behavior. And gosh, I absolutely don't want to be engaging in behavior that triggers my wife, who I adore.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do the best that I
Trigger
can.
away.
Well, I'm going to continue to work on that.
Yeah, I know.
You are, and I've heard several times where Katty really sees, recognizes, and loves that you're working on it just for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, for myself too. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
So thank you again if you listened to this.
Thank you.
All right.